All right, we're going to look at how to solve these problems from the Array Lab. As we go through the different problems here, I'll kind of jump to different screens. So the first one we're going to look at is we want to create different methods. So if you're given an array with different integers inside of it, we want to create a method that goes ahead and calculates the average, calculate how many of those numbers are above the average, what's the largest number, and then the index, the location of the smallest here. And we're going to go ahead and put these all inside of our own class. So if we go over, I have this all worked out here, and I'll go step by kind of step guide of how this works. Let me go ahead. Don't need to be so zoomed in there. Okay. So first, I'm going to go down to my class array and where we start of the average. So I'm going to go ahead in this class, I'm going to go ahead and make a public static double average. So I'm making a method here called average. It's public. I'm going to go ahead and return a double out of this. I'm going to put inside an array of integers. So that's indicating what this array is. And then this is just a dummy variable name. I'm going to get it. This is a method variable values of an array here of integers. So this name will only hold true as long as we're inside of this average method right here that we created in our array algorithms class. Right. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and if we think of average mathematically is just the total divided by the amount inside of it. So I need to create a total value here. Okay, I'm going to set that equal to 0. And then I'm going to do for each loop here, a for each loop, because I just want to go and I just care about adding up all those values. So I create this for each loop. So for integer, that's the type of variable I'm going through. I'm going to give it another name. And each time I go through, I'm just assigning it to value and through the arrays of values, right? So that's my arrays right here, array. We called that values right here. And so I'm going to have a value, and that's each one inside of values. And each time I go through this, I'm just adding that to the total. So it starts off at 0, and it will just add those all up. Now, when I want to return here, as I already told it, I want to return a double. That's why this double is right here. Now, I set this equal to an integer. So to go ahead and fix that, I need to go and cast this to a double right there. Then I just need to divide. Now that's going to return the double. I need to go ahead and divide it by the number that's in it. Well, the number that's in it will be values.length right there. Okay. So that's my average right there method that I've created. The next thing I want to do is count how many are above the average here. So to figure that out, I want to call my average to figure out what the averages of my array is. So I'm going to first create this, call this public static, and then this one's going to return an integer in this case. I'm calling this count above, and I'm putting an array. I'm going to call that array again. This is just a generic constructor for this method here, values, and it's going to be of integers. I'm going to go ahead then and use the average one I just created method here. And I'm going to set that equal to the average of this array right here that I have inputted. I'm also going to do a count right here so I can keep track of how many are above that. And then again, I'm going to do a for each loop. So this is going to go through each value inside of it. And it's just going to check, is it greater than the average? If it's greater than the average, I'm upping my count right here. And then as soon as I'm done going through each one of these, I go at the end and I have to return. Remember, it will only work if there is a return, since I indicated that I'm returning an integer. Right, then I go, what is largest? Well, same thing here. I'm going to return an integer. I want to find the largest value. Just set it equal to the first value, whether that's going to be the largest or not. It really doesn't matter. We're going to run through the whole thing again. And now I can use, so the question that might come up is, why can I use value and values again? You got to remember is that these are variables that are assigned to the method, right? So this is the largest method. This is the count above. As soon as you're done with this method, they're no longer are saved anywhere. So that's why I can reuse them over and over again for method variables. Now, if it was a global variable, that would be different. Loop variables are the same thing, right? So this is this value right here. This is actually a loop. I'm pointing to this one right there. Keep things popping up here. That's a loop variable. So value will only actually hold true while you're inside that for loop. As soon as you're out of that for loop, it's gone and it's no longer safe. So we can always reuse it if it's just being used that one time. So I save the first value as my largest, and then I just go through. Well, as I go through each one, is it larger than largest? If it is, then I resave largest to that value. I go through the whole thing. Eventually, I'll have the largest saved in there, and I can return that. The last one I have right here, so I have the index of the smallest. So whenever we go ahead and we want to index something, we have to be careful on what type of loop we're going to use. So a for each specifically will just run through each item, but it really doesn't care about your location. And that is okay in all these other cases because we don't care about our location. We just wanted to find what it was the value. In this case, though, I do care about the location. So instead of doing a for each loop, we're going to go back to our initial for loop, and that will have set an integer I right here. And that way, this integer I is what we're indexing. That's a nice thing because then we can go ahead and save that index value if we want to at any point. And then we can just index our array with our index value to get what we're looking for. So I really am looking for two things. I'm looking for what is the smallest value, and then also what is the location of that smallest value. So that's what I'm going to do right here. So I have the smallest value right here, and then I have the index of that, so small index right here. So I'm just going to set the smallest value to the first one, and then I'm going to go ahead and set it to zeros because that's where the first one's located, right? Our index of 0. Then I'm going to have a for loop that starts at integer I right here. And I'm just going to go through each value, and I'm going to see if it's smaller than the smallest, so the first one. If it's smaller than the first one, then it's going to resave the smallest, and then it's going to save its index value. And then we'll go through, and this way we'll find the smallest. And at the return, I just returned that index value right there. So nice and easy for me. So this was problem 1 right here. That answers all those questions. So if you need to, go ahead, go back, pause, and see if you can find that. Our next one is make the ball move horizontally back and forth in the middle of the screen. So we went over this. Let me just go over. I don't remember which one this was. Maybe this one. No, that's a blank one. We don't care about that one. This one was. This one is problem 3. We'll come back to that one here in a second. But moving the ball should be. Oh, did I delete that one? Did I close it? Let me see here. Well, let's just go ahead and create a new one. I had a moving box there, but we can go ahead and create a new one right here. We can do this pretty quickly. Unless it's this one right here. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here it is. It is this one right here. All right, so we did this in class, but I'll just go again. If I went a little too quickly or it was a little hard to see, you should be able to see this here. So the first thing we did is I ignored all this. I just went ahead and did my void setup, parentheses, and then I have my brackets here. And then we also have void draw. So those are the two we're always going to have. You're going to have your parentheses after them and your curly brackets. Next thing is you got to set up the size. So I set this one to 500 and 500. The next thing is I put it just a background color. So this background color can be anything. Remember, this is always red, green, and blue, RGB. Red, green, and blue, our primary colors right there, and we can add these to get different colors that we need. So I set this to a red background at 255, and I set green and blue to 0, so those colors weren't showing up at all. And then I wanted to create an ellipse. So in an ellipse, when we create an ellipse, remember that this is the starting location, X and Y starting location. And when I talk about my box, the top left is 0, 0. And then it's kind of a coordinate. So going down would increase, and going to the moving across would also increase my values there, and it goes by pixels. So this one would be wherever I put that X, Y, well, I put this one right in the middle. So it should start right in the middle of my screen here of the box I'm creating. And then it should have a height and width of my ellipse. So if I wanted a perfect circle, I go 40, 40, right? It has a width of 40 and a height of 40 right here. If I wanted to be more of an ellipse, I would have to change one of these to be like 20, and then it would be elongated. Okay, and then this will go ahead and this will set it right here. So let me go ahead and change these, comment these out for right now, and then it should just show you without it moving. Okay, because those are what's changing where it's moving. So I go ahead, I hit play right here. I should have a 500 by 500, and then I should have it right in the center here. So it's not moving, right? So at this point, I'm not changing my X. In order for my X to change, I need to go ahead and do it. Remember that this frame updates 60 times a second. So if I want to go ahead and change this, I have it set to X and Y. To get something to move, I need to change X and Y. I need to increment it. So all I'm doing is I can change my x speed, right? And before I got to all those if statements, this x speed, and we initially said x speed equals to 3 and y speed equals to 2. So before I had all these if statements, I can go ahead and actually let's comment these out right here. Let me do a multi-line comment right here. Okay. So I'm setting this, moving it. X is increasing, so it's moving this way, and then Y is increasing, so it's moving down, and then together it's moving like that. Because what's happening is every 60 times a second, it's updating. So after 1, if it starts in the middle, it adds right here 3 to this position. So it started at 250, then it's at 253, and then it ups again, it's at 256. And it's doing the same thing, but this one's only going by 2. Well, I don't want it to go off the screen, right? What we saw was go off the screen. So the next thing I had to do was I needed to go ahead and I needed to make an if statement and check to see if my x is greater than. Now remember, I set it equal to 500. But I don't want it to go to 500 because my ellipse is centered at the center of it. So if it goes to 500, you know what? Let me just show you kind of what I'm talking about right here. We're going to actually see part of it go off because it's stopping the center at 500. So I actually want to stop it before that center gets to 500. Notice there that it looks like it's partly going off. So again, look at when it hits, and it's going to go, the center is going to go right there. And that's not what I want here. So what I want is, because it has a width of 40, that means the radius is going to be 20. So I actually want this to be 480 right here, so that it's going to stop before even the edge gets there, not necessarily the center. And then if it does, I want to change x speed to -3. So then it's going to change its x speed and go back the other way. But then I need to say, well, that's going to stop it from going off the side and the right side. It can keep going past these things, and if it's not there, we just won't see it. So I need to do the same thing for the other way. If x speed is less than or equal to 0, but if I went to 0, it would half of it would go off. So I'm going to 20, and then I set it to positive. And I do the same thing with the y right here. Now we just have to remember that x and y are global variables. So I define them up here. I said x speed is equal to 3, y speed is equal to 2. I set them initially based upon the width and height of this. So it's taking that from the size, the width and height there. And then each time I'm updating, right? So x is plus equal to itself plus x speed. That's really what that's saying right there. Okay, so that's problem 2. Problem 3 here. So if you need to, pause this, make sure you get that for problem 2. If you're on problem 3 and you're having a problem with problem 3, look what it says right here. Create a window of size 800p by 600p. So that's pixels. Use for loops to draw horizontal and vertical lines every 100 pixels. You can use stroke, weight, right there. Do not write your name in the upper right-hand corner. So I'm going to go back to my program here. Okay. So I went ahead and I'm making lines. Now it wants to go all the way across right there. So it's kind of making like a checkerboard. I think when I did this class, I just showed you the horizontal. I forgot that it even asked for vertical lines there. But so I want to start, let's start with this with 0. So we do it to 0 and we go all the way up. This is going to 600. So I can actually just take this to 600 right there. So I'm creating a for loop, and what I'm doing is I'm creating a line, and I'm going from, and let's go from 0, and let's go all the way across the screen. So my width is 800 here. So I'm going to go all the way to 800. And then my Y position, I'm just setting at I, right? Well, the first time I run through my loop, it's at 0. Okay, so that's going to be at the top, and then it's going to increment. Notice here, I'm incrementing by 100. So it's going to go every 100. It's going to set a line going across this here. All right. So let's go ahead and run this, make sure this works. Give it a second to catch up. Okay, so every 100, I have a line right here. Notice I'm increasing my stroke length, stroke weight as I go across here. So I set that just to divided by 100. Okay, now if I want to go and do it vertically, I can do the same thing here. So I'm going to go 4, and I'm going to do integer I. Again, I can use I again because that is a loop variable. So it doesn't matter what I had it before. It stops working there. Now, I went up to 600 here because in this case, I was going my Y variables here. I'm basing upon my Ys going across. So I changed my X from 0 to 800 each time, and then I changed my Ys going down. So this one, think about it, I'm actually going to be changing my X's, and then my Y should go from 0 to 600 every time. Okay, and so I would have 1x right here at 100, boom, 200, 300, and so forth. So I really just need this one to go to 600. Sorry, because this is changing, I want to go this to 700. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge there. And then I want this to increase here by 100 as well. So I plus equals 100, and that will increment it up there. Okay, since this is more than one line, I'm definitely going to need curly brackets here. So let me put my curly bracket in here. I'm going to end it right there so I don't forget to do it at any point. And then I'm going to do the same here. Stroke weight, I'll increase it each time. So I divided by 100. And then line right here. So let's go ahead and make sure we understand this. I'm going to do I right here. In this case, so my Y position, I want my Y to start at 0. And then I want this one to also go I. This will be the same. And then I want my Y to stop, right? My Y is 600. I want it to be 600 right here. So my X shouldn't change. So the first X should be 0. I should see a line go down, and then it increases to 100. And then it does another line going from there to there as well. So 0 to 600. So that's starting at the top and then going all the way down to the bottom. So now I should see a checkered-like design on my board. Except let's see, integer I, duplicate local variable. So again, it is a loop variable, so it shouldn't matter. But notice here, I went ahead and I started this before I ended my other one there. So notice how I have 2 right here. Well, 1 should be at the end of this one. So I'm going to go here, end this one right here. So then I shouldn't get that error anymore, and that should fix that. And yeah, it works there. Nice. Okay, and so I see the same thing here. Oh, I should probably go one more. Get a line right there. Okay, but now I got my checkerboards going across this board. They almost look like they're getting a little smaller, right? But really what's going on is that my pixel width right here is increasing, so it makes that space look a little smaller as I go across there. I am missing the one right here. There should be one right there as well, though. So I can go ahead and let's do that as well. It didn't do 700 because I made it less than 700. I just make it equal to 700, and that should fix that one right there. And I should get my last line going down there. And I do right there. Okay, there we go. So the last part is you just want to put your name in there. So I can do text size, what size it's going to be. Stroke weight, I made it just 1. Fill color here, and then you put in your text right there of where you want it. And this is so the text you're going to put in right here is in quotes, and then comma, the X position, and then the Y position right there. Okay, and that will give you what we want. All right, hopefully that now you can get those 3 done and get that each of those submitted. If you have any questions, just let me know.